Good morning, good afternoon. I'm Lulu Matute, and I am part of the SOA Watch Staff Collective. Soy Lulu Matute, soy parte del colectivo del staff de SOA Watch. I'll be speaking in English, and soon enough, we'll have access to interpretation for those who need it. Estaré hablando en inglés. Si usted necesita interpretación en español, en un momento puede buscar el globo en la parte de abajo de la pantalla de Zoom y seleccione español. Ahí va a haber una opción que dice silenciar el audio original. Esto desactivará la sobreposición de voces para un sonido más claro. Muchísimas gracias. On behalf of the SOA Watch community, our staff collective, and longtime supporters, we welcome you all to the 2021 School of the Americas Watch Conference titled Flowers of Resistance. Due to the pandemic, this is our second year hosting the annual conference online, but we look forward to being in person with you all again next year. Thank you for coming together in this virtual space. We're joining this conference from our respective homes throughout the hemisphere, and we want to acknowledge the memory of Native communities and the ongoing struggle for Indigenous sovereignty throughout these lands. We're grateful for the original stewards of the lands, the ancestors, those who have come before, those who are here now, and those who will be. In the energy of memory and resistance, I invite us all to collectively take a deep breath in and exhale. Thank you. With that, I'll turn it over to your moderator, co-director of the California Healing Justice Program, John Lindsay-Poland.
Good morning, and thank you, Lulu. Thank you to School of the Americas Watch and all of you who are listening and watching today on various media. My name is John Lindsay-Poland. I coordinate a project to stop the flow of U.S. weaponry into Mexico, a project of global exchange. And I am super excited today with this amazing panel to address border imperialism and how legalized violence at and beyond the U.S. Mexico borderline are being exercised and opposed and resisted. So I'm going to just briefly name our speakers this morning. They will each speak for up to about 15 minutes, and then we'll have a chance for discussion. So I encourage you all, if you are in Facebook or if you're on Zoom, to, as we are listening, to put any kind of questions you may have into the chat. First will be Jenn Budd, who is a former agent of Customs and Border Patrol. Next will be Guerline Jozef, and then also Doña Taide, who is the grandmother of Jose Antonio Elena Rodriguez. Jenn Budd is not just a former customs agent, but she is now an immigrant rights activist who has been speaking about experience in CBP and the ways in which the Border Patrol is turbocharging the militarization of the southern border and making things much more difficult for both those who live there and those who are in transit and seeking asylum. So I'll turn it over to Jenn, and thank you so much for being with us today.
I am very honored to be here today with SOA Watch and with Guerline. I have to correct a little bit. I know that CBP and customs and all these terms get confused. I was a Border Patrol agent, so I was one of the agents that wore green. I joined in 1995 after I graduated from college, and I had intended to go to law school to become a, believe it or not, a civil rights attorney. And I did not know what the Border Patrol was. Being raised in Alabama and being white, I was fairly ignorant of that, of the Southwest and immigration law and the history out here. And so I joined and I was stationed in Campo, California, which are the East Mountains, just east of San Diego. It was very dangerous and treacherous out there. And I slowly started to learn, the truth and understand the history and learn about the people who were coming across and why they were coming across. And I often say that I was fortunate to be stationed in Campo, even though I was the only female out there for a while, because the two other females stationed there were gone. So it's kind of on my own and was not welcome there. But the thing about Campo was that it was so mountainous and so desolate that I ended up, whenever I did apprehend a group of, which was frequently during that time, spending time talking to them, practicing my Spanish and learning about where they were from. And so along the way, I got promoted to a senior patrol agent. And along that time, of speaking to people and learning their truths versus what I was taught in the Border Patrol Academy, I started questioning my actions and what I was doing. And I got asked to do a lot of illegal things. I got asked to overlook abuses and violations. And when I refused to, and I blew the whistle, one time I was run over intentionally by an agent at the station, physically run over. And I received a lot of harassment for trying to do the right thing. And eventually, when I tried to turn in the boss of my station who was smuggling the drugs, they offered me a promotion and I declined. And they said, well, then you're going out to the border to work. And then they shot at me. And they said, basically, you can take their promotion or you can end up, quitting, or this is going to happen to you. I apologize for my dogs barking. But so at any rate, it ended up where I had to eventually leave, is what I did when I tried to whistleblow. And then I spent many years trying to deal with my actions in the Border Patrol and trying to understand my own prejudice and my own racism. And frankly, that led me to PTSD and a very serious suicide attempt. And I survived that. And then I started realizing I needed to take responsibility for my own actions. And luckily, I was introduced to the Southern Border Community Coalition with the leaders Vicky Galbeca and Andrea Guerrero. And through being invited to many spaces where migrants who had been brutalized by my former agency, I started to change and I started to accept responsibility and I started to tell the truth about the Border Patrol. And this has all led to today where if I'm asked to, I will respond and go to sites like I went to Del Rio where the Haitians were being held to assist because I was requested. And anytime anybody needs any help or understanding about the Border Patrol and the culture and what's going on and how they get away with their crimes and everything that's happening down here on the southern border, I'm more than willing to speak to them and speak the truth and try and be a good ally and stand behind those who have been down here for generations working towards that goal. So that's who I am and what I do.
Thank you so much, Jenn. We'll come back to you soon because we want to hear more about your work challenging these laws, these institutions, and their actions. But we'll turn now to Guerline Jozef. Guerline is executive director and co-founder of the Haitian Bridge Alliance. And was the human rights crisis that's happening in Del Rio that Jenn referenced. The Haitian Bridge Alliance was one of the first responders to that and is a leader in the immigrant rights movement. Really the only Black and Haitian women-led organization that is providing the services and advocacy at the border And last month, Guerline accepted on behalf of Haitian Bridge Alliance the 2021 Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights Award that was presented at the ICE detention, outside the gates of the ICE detention center in San Diego. Welcome, Guerline. We look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much, John. Respect to everyone who are listening and joining us today. And thank you, Jenn, for your bravery, for your courage, and your continued service on behalf of those who are in extreme need of protection. My name is Guerline Jozef, as John mentioned, a co-founder and executive director of the Haitian Bridge Alliance, and also co-founder of the Black Immigrants Bail Fund, the only bail fund that is dedicated specifically for Black and other immigrants who find themselves, asylum seekers who find themselves caged in places like Otay, Mesa. And I just wanted to highlight something that just John mentioned, that I received on behalf of the Haitian Bridge Alliance, the Haitian community, and every single asylum seekers who are still being forced to wait in Mexico, and those who are in detention. When I received the call back in June or July, I don't remember anymore, about this award, it made sense for it to happen where the people are. So we made sure that we used that moment to highlight the plight of the migrants. And we started by going to Mexico, to Tijuana, and brought everyone, including the Kennedys, Wycliffe Jean, and others, to the shelter where we are supporting people, so they could hear the stories of those migrants, some of them who were under the bridge in the Rio, that were pushed back to Mexico, and they had to find a way to make it to Tijuana so they could find house and shelter. And after that, we went to the detention center, outside of the detention center, where the people were able to hear our voices. They were able to understand that they were not alone, that we were there fighting with and for them. And I wanted to highlight many lives have been lost in that detention center, including our Cameroonian brother who died a couple of years ago, whose body were able to pay close to $12,000 so he could be buried with his parents back in Cameroon. So we intentionally went to Mexico and at the U.S. Mexico border to receive this award, so that Washington, the president, the vice president, the secretary, and all people within the administration understand that we are not playing, that we are here to make sure that protection are provided, that they end Title 42, and they stop the deportations. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Guerline. So we've also invited Doña Taide Sojo de Elena, who is been struggling for the last 9 years for justice regarding the murder of her grandson, 16 years old, Jose Antonio Elena Rodriguez, in a cross-border shooting by a Border Patrol agent. I think it's one of the indicators of the divide that this border is enforcing, that Doña Taide has greater technical challenges in participating in an event like this. So in this very event, we are witnessing these inequalities that the border is meant to enforce using force. I'd like, while we're awaiting Doña Taide's arrival, I want to ask each of you kind of a question at the human level, because we know these are institutions that are undertaking these things, and both of you are engaging these issues from your own experience. And these institutions are exhibiting enormous cruelty. They're exhibiting indifference to human suffering. And I just want to ask you at that human level, whether it's, in your own self or in the ways that you relate to other people or the ways you relate to these situations, how you grapple with that. What do you, how do you manage your own experience of that cruelty that's
Hello?
occurring against migrants at the hands of these U.S. institutions?
Mhm. Jen, do you want me to start with that one? Okay. How do I grapple with that? I don't, honestly, because I'm an immigrant. I'm Haitian. I'm American. I'm Haitian American. I'm a Black woman, right? And I am also a descendant of enslaved people in the Americas. So I embody all of those different identities, all of those different characteristics. And my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, is of Taino descent, so native indigenous people. And within that one reality and so many different aspects of who I am and who we are and who I represent, right, as a people, as a country, as a nation, and the history between Haiti and the United States. How do we get here? What we saw under the bridge is not something that is lost to me as a Haitian American woman, as a Black woman. And that is not lost the fact that the fear of Haitian, the fear of Black faces at the U.S. Mexico border is nothing new. We can go back to the 1970s and 1980s, right? When the first real flow of Haitians were leaving Haiti due to U.S. policies, right? In Haiti, when we had extreme political turmoil, which was happening in Cuba at the same time. When we saw people fleeing Haiti and Cuba due to political persecution, but when they arrived, the Cubans were welcomed, allowed to prosper, but the Haitians were not welcome because their skin were too dark, right? They were from a country that should not have existed to begin with. So what you saw under the bridge is the continuation of what we have always experienced. And I always tell people that my love for Haiti doesn't take away from my love for the United States and vice versa, because I embody all of those identities. However, the reality is anti-Black racism is rooted in the very system that we are trying to fight while we are trying to live within the same system. So for me, I cannot separate myself from the people who were under the bridge, because while I was under the bridge, there was a chicken wire that separated me from them. However, I saw my face, I saw myself in each and every one of them as they were looking back at me.
Thank you so much, Guerline. That's very, very powerful. And in a way, I think you answered the question by saying that you do this by relating to people, by your analysis of all of the history and your deep connection to other people because of your identity, but also because of where you position yourself in your relating to other people. So Jen, how do you grapple with this?
It's interesting because when I go to events like the Del Rio situation that Guerline was at and I was at, and running around in different areas and trying to assist people, and when I'm in that moment, it reminds me a lot kind of when I was an agent and there would be an accident or somebody was hurt and you just kind of like put everything behind you and you just go and you do. And so I just go and I do. I do what needs to be done. I see and witness what needs to be seen and witnessed. And I kind of like have this ability, which is what got me in trouble, you know, as far as PTSD and stuff, of putting up a wall between myself and my emotions. And so you don't typically see me, I mean, inside I am a bit afraid, but you see me just kind of charging in there and trying to be very aware of this space that I am in, and that I am not the one experiencing this brutality, but I am there to witness it, and I'm there to tell the story and to back up the story in case people don't believe. It's unfortunate in this country that we still don't believe either women or people of color when they talk about these atrocities. And then when I come home, I make sure I take a few days, because what I find is then that wall starts to come down and these emotions start to come up. And especially for me, I go through this period of massive and incredible guilt of having worn that uniform and what it means to wear that uniform, and the truth of what I know is going on and what went on, you know, when I was an agent and before I was an agent. I often like to say if I knew any of this stuff before I joined, that I would have never have joined, but that's easy for me to say. I think, you know, because I'm a white woman and I'm educated, I could have had other opportunities. The fact of the matter is I did join the Border Patrol. And the fact of the matter is I did see a lot of brutality, and in times where I tried to do stuff, you know, that's great. But the fact is I did stay in and become a senior patrol agent. I stayed in for 6 years, and I have to deal with that. So I have to take time about it, and I have to talk about it with the friends that I work with that know me well and know how I feel about this, to cope with it and to understand it, and to realize that this is the most important work that I've ever done in my life, and that the work that I'm doing right now and hopefully I'm helping white people see their prejudices and racism, and that you can face it, and that you can learn, and you can come away from that, and you can be a good ally. I think that, you know, I keep coming back to that it just makes it worth it. And so I know it's going to be difficult when I go in, but I have to do it when I'm asked to do it. So that's how I deal with it. I do as what needs to be done. So.
Yeah. Well, and I'm struck by both of you who are, you don't just watch, you act. You know, you don't just observe. You do something, and I suspect that's good for all of our mental health as well as for changing things. There's a comment from one of the participants, Mark Clements, who is a Chicago police torture survivor, and says his heart goes out to all of these people that are victims of this inhumane treatment and torture at the hands of the U.S. government and other countries. There's a chicagotorturejustice.org website with more information. There's a question here, which I think is directed to Jenn, from Isha Hernandez, saying thanks to both of you. Your resilience is very inspiring, to Isha. And the question for Jenn is the use of, how has the use of new technology shaped the Border Patrol's culture? Because there must be more agents in the tech field. I'm not entirely sure exactly what that means, but, and has this shaped you or your work or the Southern Border Community Coalition's work? And offers thanks to for your dedication.
You know, it's interesting how much the agency has changed as far as, you know, when I was an agent, they were militarizing. They started militarizing under Reagan, and then I came in under Clinton. And I was right at that cusp when Operation Gatekeeper started, and the technology, of course, started changing vastly after 9/11 when they got just massive resources geared towards them. And it's interesting because as far as the line work is concerned, the physical line work of being on the border of a Border Patrol agent, there are not, maybe a little bit more than when I was an agent, of agents being physically on the line and working that line in that aspect. But there are more agents that are behind the scenes, that are working the cameras, that are working, you know, listening devices that they claim they're only listening to cartel in Mexico, but that's a lie. They're listening to Americans on their cell phones, which is illegal. The technology, the way the Border Patrol and Border Patrol agents view technology is that it equals the playing field in their mind, because they feel that the laws, like the Constitution that gives us our rights, and then various state constitutions of the various states in the borderlands, they feel that that inhibits their ability to patrol the border. And so they see no wrong in using technology to listen to your cell phone conversations, whether you're in your home or in your office or in your car. They see no problem with constantly taking your picture over and over and over again every time you cross through the port of entry, just to go to your job or to go buy medicine, even though they already have your picture on the passport in the system. They just feel that, they really feel that your personal and private information of your cell phones and your computers and stuff is up for grabs. And what you see specifically in the Border Patrol is you see them trying to create and adopt what the massive amount of authority that CBP agents have at the port of entry. They're trying to push that over to the checkpoints within 100 miles of any land or sea border. So that includes Chicago. A lot of people don't think of Chicago as a border town, but it technically is a border town. And so is Portland, and so is Washington, D.C. So, and so is Seattle. And so all these places that you wouldn't think are under this command, this is what they're doing. And the Border Patrol and the CBP's ultimate goal with all of this is to control the technology and control the surveillance of American citizens under the guise of saying they're only looking for terrorists and they're only looking for undocumented people or criminals, whatever they're using on, you know, basically those three. But the reality is they're also spying on us. The reality is what you saw during the BLM protest. The reality is that they're trying to turn it towards anybody who would curb their authorities and say that they don't have the right to do this. And that's why you saw that under the Trump administration, where they're offering their plane services and their drone services, and they're gathering everybody's cell phone technology and gathering it and giving it up to other local police departments. And the goal of the CBP and Border Patrol is to be the largest national police force that every other agency, state, local, and federal, including FBI and everybody, has to go to for that information. So they are trying to maintain that control so that then they have more authority and more power. It's very dangerous.
Indeed, it's that bureaucratic prerogative to constantly expand. And you know, I'm reminded of these maps that the Border Patrol's jurisdiction is within 100 miles of the national border, which covers, I think it's like more than 3/4 of the national population of the country. And we have a comment here that there are, as just one example of this, that there are drones flying over Las Cruces, New Mexico. that might be occurring even right now. I want to, I know that Doña Taida has been having a difficult time getting onto this call, but we have with us someone who has been working on very closely with Doña Taide, Ana Maria, and I want to ask you, Ana Maria, if you're able to talk about the Border Patrol Victims Network and the Justice for Jose Antonio Coalition, because I understand that you have been working not only with Doña Taide, but this collective struggle for justice is in its 9th year. So if you could share with us about that, that would be great.
Can you guys hear me? Okay, I unfortunately cannot hear you, so that's the connection, some problem here. But I just talked to Doña Taide, and I cannot hear very much what you guys were saying, but we've been working on the justice for Jose Antonio for more than 9 years. Now it's 9 years. Doña Taide and her family really have been the key people on this movement. They meet every 10th of every month on the border where Jose Antonio was shot 10 times in the back. And the big message that she wanted to send today is that after all that struggle, the family went all the way to the Supreme Court with the family of Sergio Adrian, who was shot in Ciudad Juarez. There's been 6 people or 7 people that we know that have been shot on the Mexican side of the border, through the border fence. So right now, what happens is that the Supreme Court decided that if you are killed on the Mexican side of the border, the bullet leaves the United States, then nobody is responsible. So one key question, Doña Taide says, if they are not responsible for their bullets, then they should not carry any weapons or have any bullets, if they cannot be responsible for this. Because how can this now be the law in the Supreme Court of the United States? She says these people that study so much, this is what they come up with, that now the bullet leaves and they can do nothing. So she has been wanting to go to Mexico City to see if there could be a way to have a trial for Lonnie Schwartz, for the border agent killed that killed Jose Antonio, if he could be tried in Mexico, at least. So she had been asking Jenn Budd to come, and but also very hopeful that with this new evidence of this tamper, how they tamper with all the proof and all that happened on that day, that maybe there should be a retrial. Because if they themselves are the ones that investigate themselves, as Jenn has been talking to Doña Taide about, then all these trials are a mockery. She said this is like a circus. It's been a circus. She went 2 trials in Tucson, and it was a lot of support with the community in Tucson, and it was the time of the SOA Watch. And you would think this would be the case that would bring some justice. Total nothingness. The people who defended or were in support of Jose Antonio were the same government that killed him. And the Border Patrol Union has millions of dollars, and they spend millions to defend murderers. Doña Taide all the time, she says, what we want is justice. We are not asking for some really strange thing, but somebody killed the grandson, like somebody killed Sergio Adrian, like Guillermo Arevalo Pedrosa was sitting on a picnic with his 2 daughters, and he was shot in the heart in Mexico too, Nuevo Laredo. No trial has come out of that. Please, she urges you to look at the Border Patrol Victims Network Facebook page. We are now doing campaign for Marisol and the other family on the border whose son was shot, but they cannot have their names revealed because they've been very threatened too. So please, the only support and solidarity these families have are all of you. This is what sustains. Hopefully, one day people can say we don't pay taxes for military, but we pay taxes. Our money we give to victims of the crimes that the United States is committing. We are hoping that Congress can rewrite a law that says if you are killed in Mexico, you have a right to go to trial and seek justice. And right now, Jenn Budd has become a very strong ally, and we are hoping that this will come to light, that these false investigations will come to light, and that these families will have justice.
Thank you so much, Ana Maria. Such an important message from so many victims of cross-border violence by U.S. agents. It's interesting to think about extradition for a murder of someone who was killed in Mexico by a U.S. agent in the recent high-level security dialogue between the U.S. and Mexico. Mexico named extradition to Mexico as one of the issues that they wanted to see more action on the part of the United States, because Mexico has, of course, extradited many people to the United States for trial within the U.S., but not so much the reverse. Guerline Jozef, I wanted to ask you about the work that you've been doing for those who are seeking asylum and encountering this strange thing called Title 42. I'm not sure everyone knows what Title 42 is, that has been used as one more obstacle to justice. I want to share also a comment from Joseph Muti, a friend of mine, who suggests that Haiti was, as the first enslaved nation to gain independence from Europe, and the economic and political punishment it suffered from Europe as a result, perhaps that's the reason why Haiti continues to be treated so dreadfully as part of the mindset of white-dominated Western nations for over 200 years. But Guerline Jozef, could you please fill us in on what is happening with these Title 42 actions and what you all are doing about it?
Thank you so much, John. And from your friend, before I answer the Title 42 question, absolutely yes. And on top of this, it's not just European countries, it's also the United States. Keep in mind that the United States embargoed Haiti from the beginning for the first 60 years, refused to accept Haiti as a free country, and forced Haiti to pay France for lost wages. Now imagine you are taken from your homeland, dismantled, you are able to recreate yourself, free yourself, and you are being forced to pay for lost wages of Black bodies. So just so we understand the role of the United States in everything that's happening, it's not just France and other European countries. The United States is complicit in everything that's happening. And also the United States invaded Haiti and occupied Haiti for close to 30 years and completely emptied the national revenue that was left after we paid France for our freedom. So now back to Title 42. We sent the first letter asking former president, the previous administration, I don't think we need to say names, to stop deportation under Title 42. The first letter was sent in April of 2022, because we clearly understood that Title 42 was a concoction of Stephen Miller that was based on anti-Black and anti-brown racism, making sure that there were no other avenue for people in search of protection at the U.S. Mexico border to be able to have access to asylum. So Title 42 is, as he will say, fake news. And we continue to see, unfortunately, President Biden adopting the same rhetoric, the same narrative, the same idea, the same policies to continue to destroy lives. To date, under President Biden, 114 deportation and expulsion flights have been sent to Haiti. I will repeat, 114 flights. Over 16,000 people have been deported to Haiti. Now, let me paint a picture for you of what's been happening in Haiti since Biden took office. We had the murder of the president, the assassination of the president in July, and three weeks later, they sent another deportation flight. That's the eve of the earthquake that killed over 3,000 people and destroyed over 200,000 lives. 3 weeks after that, they sent another deportation flight to Haiti. Now, we saw what happened in Del Rio. As a result, they have sent 80 deportation flights to Haiti. Now, keep in mind that under Title 42 that they are using, I had a couple of questions for people within the administration, including Secretary Mayorkas. If we are saying those people cannot have access to asylum, to protection because of COVID-19, are we testing them? If they are being tested and they test negative, therefore they do not represent a health risk to the rest of the population. So they should be allowed to continue with the process. If they test positive, we have guidance to quarantine people for 14 days until they are clear, and they test negative, they should be released. Now, if we are not testing people, we are willingly exporting COVID-19 to a country like Haiti that only has 120 beds that is equipped for COVID patients. In addition to extreme violence, political turmoil, earthquake, storms, we literally seeing the United States, instead of sending the firefighters while the house is burning, right? Sending the firefighters to save lives, we are literally taking pregnant women, babies, children, and dropping them into the burning house. While the flame are in full effect, we are dropping pregnant women and children into that, using the rules of Title 42. So we have had many entities showing clearly that Title 42 is an excuse. We have health professionals clearly stating that no one should be deported under Title 42 because it is not helping. Now, we in the United States are begging people to take the vaccine, paying people to get tested, at the same time saying we do not have the capacity to test 10,000 people and provide vaccine for them so that they can be safe and get the protection that they need. In addition, I also have to say that Title 42 does not apply for those people who are rich and famous who can get on their own jets and go wherever they want. It doesn't apply to Ted Cruz. When they had the storm in Texas, he was able to take his family and go to Mexico and Cancun because that was the safe space for them. So Title 42 is an excuse that the current administration continues to use to literally destroy the lives of people they should be protected. And we understand that the fear of Black and brown people in the United States is rooted in anti-Black racism. Title 42 is anti-Black. Title 42 is a racist policy. And we see Biden, Harris, Mayorkas continue to use those racist systems to literally destroy the lives of people that we should be protected. We've had many reports from Human Rights First, from Adult Rolado, from Haitian Bridge Alliance, and others who are on the ground showing clearly how Title 42 is unacceptable, is unexecutable, and should be stopped immediately.
Thank you so much, Guerline. It's such a compelling case for overturning this awful, awful policy. And I do want to come back to you before we finish today about actions that people can take exactly to that end. But we have on the line Doña Taide, who is joining us and will be speaking, I believe, in Spanish. So if you are listening in English, you are able to hear the simultaneous interpretation by clicking on the globe that says interpretation at the bottom of your screen. Doña Taide, nos gustaría si nos puede hablar de su experiencia y pues el mensaje que quiere compartir hoy. Hay una pregunta también de qué ha significado las vigilias que han habido ya en la frontera por estos últimos 9 años. Adelante, doña Taide, y gracias por estar con nosotros hoy. Is Doña Taide able to hear us?
Doña Taide, el Zoom te dio permiso para hablar. No sé si sale como la opción de...
Please bear with us, folks, while we try to get Doña Taide's participation. Doña Taide, creo que tiene que tocar el botón para quitar el mudo, quitar el mute. Bueno, vamos a seguir entonces so we will continue and hope that Doña Taide can join us. Again, one more expression of the divide, exactly the divide that we're talking about. Thank you so much for that analysis, Guerline. I want to turn to Jenn Budd again to talk about the action that the Southern Border Communities Coalition is taking against a secret unit within the Border Patrol that is strengthening the impunity for crimes that are committed by agents. And I understand that the coalition is taking some action against that. And as a Border Patrol agent, if you could offer your insights and information about this, because I believe it's new information that not even a lot of activists will have heard before.
So the United States Border Patrol has authority to legal authority from the legislature, from Congress, to be able to investigate. They have limited investigative abilities. They obviously can work in immigration cases, they can work in narcotics cases because drugs are smuggled across the border. And they can obviously work in anything like they may encounter like customs. So anything that has border relevance they can do, but they are not allowed to investigate themselves in their own use of force. So if an agent is on duty or even off duty and they kill somebody like they did in the case of Doña Taide's grandson, they are not allowed to have any investigative hands-on. And what they have done since 1987 is they have had secret groups that they first started in San Diego under the title of Critical Incident Investigative Team. In San Diego, it was a CIIT, we called it a SIT. And most Border Patrol agents do not understand that they're illegal. When I was an agent, I because of my degree and because of my knowledge of law, I knew they were illegal. And I witnessed them go out, and unfortunately, the ones I witnessed, nobody was injured, but I witnessed where shootings would happen, and I would respond, and these teams would respond, and they would always say, oh, we were rocked. And even though no agent has ever died from a rocking, no agent has been critically injured from a rocking. A few have been, gotten bloodied up a little bit or a black eye. They use this as an excuse to be able to shoot people. And in the case of Jose Antonio, they use it as an excuse to kill him as he's walking down the street to go meet his brother while he was in Mexico. What these units do is not only do they not have legal authority to be doing what they're doing, the Border Patrol apparently uses them because they can get to these areas quicker than CBP can, OPR, which is their internal affairs under CBP. And they have used them to stage evidence, and they have used them to maybe throw more rocks out in the road than there were. When they go in, I'll speak specifically to Jose Antonio's case. So when I met Tahiti and she asked me about this, I knew about SETs, and I knew that SET exists in Tucson sector. I went and looked at the civil trial, and what I found is that they admitted, and they're very proud of it, that they used SIT team members. First of all, nobody was on the scene after Jose Antonio was murdered by a Border Patrol agent until 45 minutes afterwards. So the people who did the killing had the scene for 45 minutes. And they admitted to allowing at least 3 cars to drive through the scene. And they admitted to allowing agents to move around the scene. And then when the SIT team shows up, the SIT, who are Border Patrol agents, who do not have this authority, they go to the agents who committed the crime and go, okay, where's the evidence? Which rocks were thrown at you? Which this, which that? So they're asking the people who have committed the crime what the evidence is. So they're only collecting that evidence. And then by the time the FBI agent, in this case, it was FBI agent Terwilliger, shows up on the scene, she just takes what the Border Patrol tells her is the evidence. And then they magically, accidentally erase the video footage, just as they did in the Anastasio Hernandez Rojas case in San Diego in 2010. They say accidentally, and I say that with sarcasm because it's not accidentally. And so every step of the way, they are working with investigative units by the FBI or from OIG or local investigative units, and they know what they know about what the agents did. And these teams are not there to find the truth. It says in their own writings, the SBCC uncovered in their own PowerPoint presentations that their only purpose is to limit the civil liability of the agency for the agency's actions and to limit the accountability of agents and make it so that they will not be held accountable when they either beat or they kill, maim people. And to date, we don't have, no Border Patrol agent has been held accountable. 2 agents were, but Donald Trump pardoned them and let them out. And actually one of them belonged to this SET team. And one of the things he did was he picked up his rounds after he killed the man to hide the evidence. So the Border Patrol has been engaged in this since 1987. I personally know about it on a level as an agent, and then also from just looking at Jose Antonio's case and how they manipulated it. The most interesting thing about Jose Antonio's case that I want Doña Tahiti to know is that it did go to a criminal trial and it was a hung jury. And the jury said that the improper way that they could not maintain custody of the scene and of the evidence was one of the reasons why they were a hung jury and couldn't convict him. So it's not just about getting an idea of what is going on when these incidents happen so that they can spin it in the press. It's also about, oh, the evidence was poorly collected. And now it leaves juries, and it also leaves the Department of Justice, if they ever want to consider filing charges against the agents or the agency for doing this, they can't because the evidence is corrupted and there's literally nothing that they could do. If I was a U.S. prosecutor, I wouldn't take the case because the evidence is corrupted. So they know that they're doing this. And the worst thing about it is the FBI and OIG and DOJ and everybody else knows that they've been doing it for over 30 years. And I think it's time in this country that we admit our racism and we admit our prejudices and we face it head on. And I think it's time that we do something about it. And I think we need a Truth and Reconciliation Committee. We need an investigation, as SBCC is called for from Congress, and several congressional members are asking for it. And I think that the victims' families, like Doña Tairi and the Anastasio family and everybody else's families, we could go on and on. Every single one of them deserves a reinvestigation because the evidence was tampered with from the very beginning. And the people who know about this was designed by the upper management of the Border Patrol. It has been run for over 30 years. And it's atrocious what they've done. It makes me even more disgusted that I ever wore that uniform. And frankly, the agents that join this agency thinking that they're doing the right thing and protecting the United States, they should be mad too. I'm mad. I'm mad that I ever put on this badge and I didn't know about it because I wouldn't have joined it. So that's what the set teams are. I think we're going to see a lot more news about it. And I'm willing to obviously talk about it and provide any insights to anybody who has questions about it.
Thank you so much, Jen. It reminds me so much of both in the military, the doctrines that have been established to evade responsibility for war crimes, using those same doctrines to accuse opponents of using the law in order to defend themselves, when in fact the U.S. military is often creating doctrine, something called lawfare, which is often used as a way of evading any kind of legal accountability for the harm that's done during its actions, and police departments themselves as well. When there is a police shooting, there's a comparable process in which officers that conducted the shooting are allowed to consult body cam footage and make a statement before there's an independent investigation. So I want to, before asking Guerline for a final statement, we're going to wrap up. I do want to report a little bit on some of the comments that have occurred from our attendees. Someone discusses the previously longest undefended border in the world between Canada and the U.S., which has also had a massive growth in infrastructure expenditures and personnel, including drones, but that the border is not fixed. It extends throughout our country to parks, neighborhoods. Everyone is directly or indirectly connected. And in many ways, I would say the border is in our minds. It's a construct, right? It's something that people create in their minds in order to divide people, to divide resources, to divide access. Robert Rovner comments, it's beyond belief that the United States is running concentration camps. Someone else notes that Biden is less overtly anti-asylum seeker than the previous administration, but withholding implementing promises made during his election campaign, with far more people in detention now than the previous administration. Elizabeth comments that in Virginia, there's a supposed only ICE facility for immigrant children with misdemeanors in the U.S., and recounts a 17-year-old from El Salvador who was recently released from there after being imprisoned over a year. And before that was at a previous facility, a closed facility in Seattle, where he was for 9 months. He had come to the U.S. in 2017 and lived with his mother. So these institutions are interacting with the so-called field operations of agents that we've been hearing about today. I want to ask you to help us close, Guerline, with what you think people can do about Title 42 and other actions that people can take in support of your work and all of those who are confronting this. There's someone here who says that they want to help at the border. They ask if there's anything they can do to be of use. Someone from El Paso, but who's currently living in Virginia, and is also willing to travel. I think there's many people here today who want to take actions, whether it's to travel and go to the Capitol, take advocacy actions, go to the border, take other actions. I also, so I want to turn it over to you, Guerline, to help us close that out.
Thank you so much, John, and everyone, Jen, Ana Maria, Doña Taide, Lulu, everyone really for putting this together and for participating. After I listened to Jen's description of the program and John's experience, within the armed forces, and what we are seeing happening or continues to happen inside of the United States, right? We see the connections. It's not new system, it's system that is being replicated at different time upon different bodies and different spaces. But at the end of the day, all those systems are rooted in racism. All of those systems are rooted in the hatred for the others. All those systems are rooted in the fear of those people. And so how do we move forward as a nation, as a people? How do we make sure that those systems are dismantled? And when the president talk about build back better, we cannot build upon a system that is created to destroy lives. We have to make sure that we start at a place where we center the dignity of people, no matter where they are from, no matter where they are born, no matter their ethnicity, their background, that they can be able to have the freedom of mobility. I was talking to a friend yesterday, and I wasn't talking about the fact that people are moving from Haiti or Cuba or Venezuela, but our very basic needs for mobility, whether you believe in creation or evolution, we move from one place to the next, trying to find and survive and thrive. And again, we see the lack of mobility only applies for people who are poor, vulnerable, in need of protection, Black, brown. And we clearly heard from former President Trump, I will say his name because he called people from Haiti shithole countries, from Africa. They don't want people from those places. People from Mexico and Guatemala are rapists and murderers. We don't want them here. Upon this land that we have stolen from indigenous people, completely destroy them and force them into annihilation. But we are willing to welcome people from Norway because they are blue-eyed and blonde hairs. That is the reality. Whether at the U.S. Mexico border, in the armed services, in the corners of Michigan, and everywhere we find ourselves in this Black body, in this dark, non-white body, we have to continue to live under a shadow of fear that shouldn't be. Mobility of people should not be restricted based on what we look like and how we sound and what we want. At the end of the day, the freedom and liberty for life in the pursuit of happiness should be afforded to everyone. My children, your children should have a future free of fear. And we stand against all internal violences upon our lands and all external violences. So as we move forward as a people, how do we make sure that we continue to dismantle the system that were created to destroy lives and bring back people welcoming with dignity, providing safety, and so that we can continue together. I don't know, John, if is that what you really wanted to hear from me, but at the end of the day, I feel if we do not face our realities, like Jenn was able to say, I was able to look at myself in the mirror and realize I have to address my very own racism, my very own prejudices, in order for me to reinvent myself as a human being, as a citizen of the world, to make sure my fellow people, my fellow citizens, whether they are from Haiti, from Cuba, from Guatemala, that I respect them, I welcome them, and then I see them as equal. So if this is not what you wanted, I am so
thank
sorry.
you, that is.
But that's
Thank
what
you
I
so
have
much,
for you
Guerline.
today.
It's so foundational. You really, because it is the work that we all need to do. We need to understand how we can be true to something in a system, as you said before, that is fundamentally racist, that is fundamentally harmful, and yet construct something different even as we live in that system. So thank you to both Guerline, to Jenn, to Ana Maria, to all the participants. If you want any kind of follow-up actions or contacts, they will be in the chat of the Facebook transmission or of the Zoom, and any of you who registered who get a follow-up email. In just a few minutes, we are going to be going to the next panel. I urge you to stay. Tangled Roots, Mass Migration in the Biden administration's Co-opting of the Narrative of Change, which we've heard about a little bit today. Yesenia Portillo from CISPES, as well as Xotlil Sanchez from Carecen, and Lulu and Brigitte of SOA Watch. Thank you so much for joining us. Onward y adelante.